Welcome everybody. Tonight we're gonna continue going through the Amidah, and we're gonna talk about the first bracha in the Shemona Esrei, which is the bracha of Avos. It's confusing because really the first three brachas of the Shemona Esrei are really, some say they're all like one unit together. But we're gonna take part one out of the three-part big bracha, which is just the bracha of Avos, and maybe at the end of this year, hopefully we'll have a better understanding of what's going on in this bracha. So before we go through the actual words, let's just speak for a few minutes about, we mention in this bracha, we talk about Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. So why are we mentioning the Avos? What exactly does this represent? So we're going to talk about that first, and then afterwards we'll go through the actual words. And the shir tonight is going to be basically through Rav Schwab's understanding of the bracha of Avos. There's many different ways of understanding the Shemona Esrei in particular, but tonight we're just going to do basically mostly Rav Schwab. So Rav Schwab explains that what do the Avos represent? So he says that the source is from a Medrash in Parshas Bo. So the Medrash says, Medrash asks, from where do we know that we should say this bracha in Amidah? From where do we know that we should say? Medrash says, Minayim she'omrim baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu Elokei Avosinu Elokei Avraham Elokei Yitzchak Elokei Yaakov. Right, that's very familiar. That's the opening lines in the Amidah. Where do we know that we say it? So Medrash says, Shneimar Vayomer Od Elokim Moshe Kol Tomar Bnei Yisrael Hashem Elokei Avosichem Elokei Avraham Elokei Yitzchak Elokei Yaakov Shalachani Alechem Zeshni Leolam V'zeh Yisrael Dor V'dor. So the pasuk says, this pasuk explains that Hashem tells Moshe Bnei Yisrael, that when Bnei Yisrael want to address him, what name should they call out to God? How should they address God? So he says they should use the name Hashem Elokei Avosichem Elokei Avraham Elokei Yitzchak, etc. Right? That he should use this name, which is the very way we start the Shemona Esrei, which is good. We're listening to the Medrash. That's what Hashem told Moshe. That's how we should address him. So but what exactly does it mean, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov? So we can explain it based on a Medrash that Rashi quotes in Bereshit on the pasuk that this is the promise. This pasuk that quoted, that's the promise that God makes to Avraham. He says a few things. I'm going to turn you into this great nation. So Rashi says that's referring to Avraham. That Hashem's telling Avraham, I'm going to turn you into a great nation. That Avraham is the father of our nation, of Bnei Yisrael. And then he says, I'm gonna bless you. So the Medrash explains that's referring to Yitzchak. But God Allah Shemecha, I will make your name great, and that refers to Yaakov. And then the last part of the pasuk says that Yebracha. So Medrash explains that you might have thought to conclude the first bracha of Shemona Esrei with the last words of the first bracha of Shemona Esrei, we say Magen Avraham. So you might have thought you should say Magen Avraham, Magen Yitzchak, Magen Yaakov, just like we mentioned all three of their names in the beginning. But the Medrash says that the Yebracha, that refers only to you, Avraham, and you're going to be the conclusion of the bracha. Okay, so that's the Medrash. We have a lot to explain. What exactly is going on here? So you can explain maybe as follows: that each of the Avos, each of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, they represent a different part of Malchus Hashem, accepting Hashem as our king. That we know when we say a bracha, the Gemara in Brachos tells us that kol bracha shein ba Malchus ain't a bracha. That any bracha that doesn't mention the Malchus, the kingdom of Hashem, the fact that God is our king is not a bracha. So when we look at Shemona Esrei, right, we start saying the first bracha, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu Elokei Avosinu Elokei Avraham Elokei Yitzchak Elokei Yaakov. We're not mentioning Malchus. So what's going on in this bracha? Why are we not mentioning Malchus? So Rav Schwab explains that really by mentioning the all three of the Avos, we actually are mentioning Malchus. This is how we mention Malchus. That explains in particular Avraham. How is that Malchus? So Avraham is the founder. Right? And we know Avraham is the founder of monotheism. He's the one who recognized first that there was one God in this world. The famous medrash about Avram. He knocked down all the idols of his father Terah, because Avram brought into the world the idea that there's only one God who's king of the world, and that's also why we call Avram Av Hamon Goyim, because he's the founder. There are other religions which also have monotheism. Avram's the founder of many Goyim, because Avram's the founder of monotheism. So that's one aspect of Malchus that we're recognizing. Then number two is Yitzchak. And Yitzchak, primarily we think of Yitzchak, we think of the Akedah Yitzchak. And so that's the recognition that God, even though he's, it's not only that he's the king of the world, but at the same time, he's able to be our personal king. He's the king of us as well. And that's Yitzchak, which represents this personal relationship. And then finally is Yaakov, who's called Yisrael also. And this Yaakov is when Bnei Israel they form into a nation. So that's the recognition that God is the king, not only over the world, not only of us as individuals, but also as God over the Jewish people. And that's why we add Elokei. The reason why we say Elokei before each of the avos, right? We say Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov. Why don't we just say Elokei Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov? Just say all three of them. So the reason may be because we're recognizing that there's these different aspects of recognizing God as our king. There's the fact that God's the king of the whole world. There's the fact that God's our king. We're his servant. He's a personal and individual level, and the fact that God is the king over us as a people. And that's what we're supposed to mean when we mention all three of them, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And then the question is, we're going to return to this question, but just to give a few answers right now, that why is it that Avram gets special treatment? Avram's gets they mention Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and only Avram gets the name at the end. Why just Avram? So a few answers. I was talking to one of my friends in Shir, and he gave me a few answers. He said, number one, maybe you could say, quoted this from the Imrei Emes, that Avram was the first Yid. So we start off Shemona Esrei by reminding Kadosh Baruch Hu, reminding God to look at the little Avram inside of us. We're the first Yid, the first Jew. The other answer he gave me is from the Moreh Naim, that Avram represents Chesed. So we're asking God that there's a lot of stuff that you can do in this world to us, but please act with us with Chesed. And that's why we want to end with Avram in the beginning of this Shemona Esrei. Okay, but we'll return to that point. So for now, let's go through the rest of the words. That say Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Elokei Avotenu Elokei Avraham Elokei Yitzchak Elokei Yaakov. Fine, we explain that. Then the bracha continues with a bunch of. We're going to list off a bunch of different adjectives. So I'll go through them. We say Hakel, Hagadol, Hagibor, V'Hanora, Kel Elyon. Actually, just as a side point that I heard from my Rebbe at YU, Rabbi Leibowitz, that he said a good trick for having kavanah when you daven Shemona Esrei, it's very hard to focus, but a good trick for having kavanah is that maybe you should do an action, almost like this other action as you're davening. So as you're listing off. So for example, here as you're listing off the different adjectives of God, a good way to focus is by counting them on your fingers. What is he? He's Hakel, 1, Hagadol, 2, Hagibor, right? And this way, it's not, you don't just get lost as you're saying the words, but you're actually doing something at the same time. And it's a good way to have kavanah as you daven. So what are these different adjectives that we're mentioning? So go through them. Hagadol, Hakel's first. Hakel means the Almighty. So this is going to be how Rashab defines all them. They're a little bit hard to understand really the differences between them. Hakel means Almighty. So he says that refers to the power of Hashem, that he's not bound by his midos. He's more than his midos. He explains that God, if he wants, he can reward an evil person. And if he wants, he can also punish someone who's a tzaddik, if that's what his wish is. He's above the midos that he is. So, and the greatest power that God ever revealed to us is the fact that he created the world. So even though he had no need to create the world, he created the world out of mercy, and that's all understood through this first adjective, which is hakel. The next one is hagadol. He says gadol literally means great, and he says that great gadol always comes in line with chesed, because pasuk in Tehillim says chan v'rachum Hashem erech apayim ugdal chesed. Gadol comes along with chesed, so this refers to great and great chesed. Next one is hagibor, that means powerful. It says, explains we serve Hashem in fear of his power. So pachad yitzchak means. Next one is behanora, means awesome. So he says that if you may not really have understood what hagadol and hagibor were, but he says that if you combine, right, we said hakel, then hagadol, hagibor, and next is behanora. So he said you might not really have understood what hagadol and gibor is, but I'll tell you what, that behanora, the next one, is if you add gadol, if you take gadol and gibor and you mix them up together, you get nora. That's what it means. It means it's a combination of serving Hashem out of love and fear. That's what it is. So as you're going through, as you're saying Shemon Esrei, you're saying okay, Gadol, don't really get that. Gibor, okay, and Hanora, okay. I combine the two, and then if you still don't like that, the next one is Kel Elyon, which means this is perfect. The Almighty, who is above our understanding. He's above what we can understand. I mean, the point is we can try to define Hashem with all those definitions, all those different adjectives which we listed, but the truth of the matter is that he's Elyon. Elyon means above. He's above what we can understand, and that's really the point. But Schwab says that this Kel Elyon, there's a reason why he didn't say this, but he says that it's almost like also like it's above our understanding, but also even when bad things happen. The idea that even when bad things happen, it's sometimes you just have to recognize that there's a reason for it, and it may seem unfair, but it's really beyond our understanding. But the reason why he says that is because he puts it in line with the next one, which is Gomel Chasadim Tovim, who bestows beneficial kindness. Right? He's saying that even though it's like coming to contrast it, that even though sometimes he has things which are Kel Elyon above our understanding, we can't understand why these things happen in the world, but he's also the source of all good. He's Gomel Chasadim Tovim. He's all the chesed, all the goodness that comes in the world comes from God. You have to recognize that as well. And he says that this is an interesting point that said if you would have said just Gomel Chesed, there's a difference between just Chesed and Gomel Chasadim Tovim. Tovim is good, Chesed is kindness. What does it mean? Chasadim Tovim. So he says not just that he grants chesed, not just that, but he gives us chesed, which we're able to take that chesed and use it to benefit others as well. This double benefit. That's how he explains it. Gomel Chasadim Tovim. So I see his question. It doesn't mean he doesn't. I mean, when we say Kel Elyon, it means there are stuff that recognize to us. There's stuff that seem to us which may be bad, but they're not really bad. They're above our understanding, but we can't always comprehend that. We can't always understand why good things happen to be bad. Sorry, bad things happen to good people, or why good things happen to bad people, frankly. But he's saying that that's true. But also at the same time, all the goodness also comes from God. So that's important to recognize as well. The next one, the Konei Hakol. He is the owner of everything. Essentially, he's saying that Schwab compares this to the words of Nishmas. This is one of the most beautiful parts of davening that we say on every Shabbos. Nishmas. Actually, I remember that when I was going through the Mishnah Berurah on Tefillah, that he said for Nishmas you have to make sure to say with Kavanah, to say it properly. It's one of the most beautiful tefillos. You have to make sure to say that one. So he says he compares the words of Nishmas. The words of Nishmas quotes. He gives a small excerpt that he says, "Ilu finu malei shira kayam," were our mouths as full as songs as the sea. Ein anachnu maspikim lahodos lecha Hashem Elokeinu. We still cannot thank you sufficiently to Hashem our God. Al afas elef alfei alafim b'ribi revos For even one of the thousands of myriads of favors that you've performed for our ancestors and us. We're basically saying, as much as we could do, it will never be enough for even the smallest amount that you do for us, God. We have nothing to offer you, for you own everything. And basically, right, Konakol, you own, this means you are owner of everything. And that's why we're therefore your servants. Shab is an interesting point here that he says that in Bereshis in we're talking about Vayigash with Yosef and the Egyptians. So the Chumash tells us that the Egyptians had no food because there was a famine in Egypt. And year one, what happened? They had no food, so they used up all their money, and they had no more money left. So in year two, what happens? They come and they say, we're just going to give ourselves up. We're going to be slaves to Paro and give us food. And so everyone asks on this part of Chumash, why is the Torah going into great detail telling us about this point of Egyptian history? This is the Torah. This is not a history textbook, especially about the Egyptians. It's not even about us. Why is the Torah going into great length? So one of the approaches may be how Rosh Hashanah understands that, at least, that the Torah is going into such detail because it's telling us that this is how we should approach our relationship with Hashem. When the Egyptians had literally nothing, they had no means of paying for food, they came and approached Yosef, they approached Pharaoh, and they said, V'niya avadim leParo. We have nothing else. Let us just be slaves. Let us just be servants to Pharaoh. There's nothing else we can do. So too, I think that's the story you have to keep in mind when you say the Konei Akol. We're saying to Kadosh Baruch Hu, we are offering ourselves as your servants. Konei Akol, you own everything. You even basically, right? You own us. We are your servants. We have nothing else. We have nothing else to offer to you. Okay. V'zocher chasdei avos. He remembers the merits of avos. So he explains based on the words of the rewards of our fathers, the rewards that they earned is chesed. Zocher chasdei avos. He remembers the chesed that our avos earned. Umevi goal ibnei bneihem. He brings the Redeemer Mashiach to their children. Who's the avos children? That refer to us, right? They're our father's children is us. And he explains, he just throws this in here like it's no big deal, but he says maybe is in the present tense because he says that the Geula does not happen all at once, but rather it's an ongoing process which culminates with bringing of Mashiach. Okay, so I didn't know I was gonna get a point about Mashiach. How is Mashiach going to come? I thought I was just learning davening, but he tells you this is how Mashiach is going to come. He reveals to you a little secret about Mashiach, that it's maybe. Look at the word of Shmona Esrei. He tell you it's maybe. It's slowly coming. It's a gradual process. It's happening right now as we speak. That's why we say tzemach a lot in regards to Mashiach, because it's supposed to be like a plant which grows. So that's along the lines of what Schwab's saying. Okay, yeah. So I see a question that didn't we say in earlier this year? No, Chos Avos. Yes, the Chos Avos is a complicated topic. We're not gonna talk about it tonight, but we can definitely have a different cheer about Chos Avos. There's also some who say Chos Avos is gone. It's okay, fine. There's a lot to talk about there, but definitely for a different time. Okay, Leman Shemo Biava, for his own sake out of love. So Leman Shemo, for his own, this means his name. So one of the names of God is Goel Yisrael. He's the one who brings the Geula. So, and then the last point is Behava, out of love. So we're essentially saying that the redemption is going to come, right? Shemo, Goel Yisrael, the fact that he brings Geula is going to come out of love, meaning even if we don't deserve it, even if we haven't done what we need to deserve it, it's still going to come. Melech, Uzer, Umoshiach, Magin. Okay, four more things. So Reb Schwab explains that these four go together. That it's we're saying first, number one, we recognize Kadosh Baruch Hu, God, he's the Melech, he's our king, who is our Redeemer. That's number one. Then we say Ozer. So we describing him as Ozer. Ozer means to help. He's the one who helps us. When we make an effort to be worthy of Geula, he will help us. A lot of times that when we're struggling with something, even in relation to avodas Hashem, how we serve God, we ask Hashem to help us get to a point where we're able, maybe we're not able to daven that I heard once that in regard to overcoming your Yetzer Hara, it's very hard to overcome. It's always gonna beat you, but you're supposed to daven to God to say, help me overcome it. Once he sees that this is something you want to do, and that this is or in regard, people say in regard to learning, you don't or to learn Torah, that some people, it's hard for them to learn Torah. They don't like it so much, but they want to be at a point where they want to learn Torah. So you ask Hashem to help you get to that point as well. Help me. So we're saying, be Ozer, help us. When we make an effort to be worthy of Geula, he's Ozer. He helps us get there. That's what Ozer means. Next is Moshiach, that this is even when we don't even make an effort, right? We're not even Ozer. We haven't even tried. Still, God is going to save us. He's Moshiach. This Moshiach means save. He's gonna save us, even though we didn't make an effort. And we definitely don't deserve the Geula. And then Umagin. Finally, he's Magin. So Magin means shield. If you want a theme of the tefillah, an image, think of the shield. Magin. He protects us. He protects us through Galus. So this, on a simple level, this can mean that even when our enemies plan on destroying us, Hashem will protect us. Sometimes it's in ways we can't understand. Sometimes it's in ways we do understand. Just today's Yom Ha'atzmaut, so that we can understand how God protects us in the wars. But sometimes it's in ways we don't understand. Like the Shrab explains that anti-Semitism actually protects us from assimilation. It's a form of protection from God. That's a simple level, but on a deeper level, he explains based on the idea that the closer we get to Mashiach, Chazal tells, the closer we get to Mashiach, the darker the Galus will be, the more immoral society will get. This is his idea that he quotes, that he's gonna say, as we get closer and closer to the time of redemption, we're gonna need to basically stay determined and separate ourselves from this immorality. Not only that, but also raise the world from immorality. And it's impossible to do that without the mugging, without the shield of Hashem. And so, as we finish the bracha, we're saying, just as HaKadosh Baruch Hu protected Avram, right? We learned from Avram Avinu that when the whole world is on one side, right, and they're telling you one thing, still Avram was able to stay on the other side. This is actually why he's called, Chazal tells us why he's actually called Avram Avinu, that the whole world was on one side, he's on the other side, and he was able to stay firm to his values and continue to spread the message of Hashem. So we're trying to invoke that, right? We're asking Hashem to help us get to that goal, and so this is also based on the pasuk that Hashem tells Avram after the battle of Stone, says, "Al tira Avram, fear not Avram, for I am a shield for you." We're supposed to recognize that as we get closer into, as we go through the goals, Hashem is there to protect us and let us reach those goals. And then we finish Baruch Atah Hashem Magen Avram, and so we bow with the first Baruch Atah Hashem, and we bow with the ending Baruch Atah Hashem. This is one of the times we bow in Shemona Esrei. And so why are we bowing? So the beginning, our first bow is we're bowing down in the beginning of the bracha. We're recognizing the belief in God, because just as our avos, just as our fathers recognized Hashem and accepted him as their God, so we're saying, Kadosh Baruch Hu, this is the same Elokeinu, this is the same God that our avos had. We're recognizing that Hashem, yes, you are the God, you're Elokeinu, the same God that Avram had, the same God that Yitzchak had, right? The different aspects of God which we spoke about. That's all you, Hashem. But then at the end, we're saying almost something different. That we're bowing, and we're saying thank you, Hashem, for letting us recognize you as our God on our own. Right? This Magen Avram, the shield of Avram. You, despite everything that in society, all the outside influences in our life, we were able to recognize you as our God, just as Avram did. And so, and you are the Magen, the shield of Avram, which allowed us, protected us, and was the shield which let us get to that goal. And so, just to recap, that what's really the theme of this first bracha of Shemona Esrei is, number one, recognizing that Hashem was our God, and he was God of our Avu, and he has all these different midos, but it's there's different aspects of what it means that Hashem is our God, Hashem is our Melech, on a individual, on a communal, on a global level. And Hashem has all these different midos, but ultimately it's really beyond our comprehension what it really means. And we can't even really fully understand Hashem. But then also, point two is that part of the Malchus and part of our relationship with God means that He's going to protect us for us connecting with Him and recognizing that He's our God, just as He did so and was the God of Abraham. Any questions?